Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to wait a couple of minutes for everyone to log on and jump onto the Zoom webinar. But welcome for those of you who are here now, and we're looking forward to getting started.
Hear you.
We can hear you, yep. We're just waiting for a couple more, or for some more people to hop on, maybe a couple more minutes before we get started. Welcome everyone who's here. We are just waiting about one more minute for everyone to jump onto the webinar.
Okay. Hello, my name is Daniel Schoonmaker. I'm the Executive Director of West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, and I'm pleased to welcome you to a presentation today. For those that are not familiar with the organization, Michigan's Great Southwest Sustainable Business Forum is a regional program of the West Michigan Business Forum. MGSSBF is dedicated to educating, engaging, and empowering our community to more equally value environmental stewardship, social responsibility, and economic growth. You will receive a link to a video of today's program, the feedback survey, and any additional notes that come out of today's program and email following this webinar. This webinar and all of our programs are primarily funded through membership donations. If you're not yet a member of our organization, I encourage you to become one. We do offer both individual and corporate memberships. To that effect, I'd like to recognize 3 new individual members from the region: Brian Binns from Spectrum Health, Andrea Johnson of Padnos, and Teresa Hooger-Hyde of the U.S. Green Building Council. We'd also like to recognize a new corporate member, Crane Apparel. You may also be interested in learning about our various working groups that serve the larger Western Michigan area, with upcoming meetings including our Solid Waste Task Force, which is next meeting on July 28th, our Sustainability and Equity Working Group meeting on July 7th, or our Green Stormwater Infrastructure Working Group, which meets next on July 8th. Please email us to get involved in any of these initiatives, or direct message us in the chat if you prefer. Now I'd like to introduce our panelists for our program today. Employee Actions for Waste Reductions from Whirlpool Corporation. Bridget Cook, analyst, engineering on the sustainability team at Whirlpool Corporation. And Kelly Tucker, Senior Manager of Global Communications at Whirlpool. Thank you both for joining us today, Bridget and Kelly. For our attendees, please note that you can share thoughts with the panelists or all our attendees through the chat function. You can also ask questions through the Q&A field. We will have time at the end of the presentation today for open questions and answer. Kelly and Bridget will be speaking to us today about Whirlpool's overall sustainability strategy and highlight their 2020 sustainability report, as well as discuss the launch of their global sustainability campaign, No Place for Waste, which encourages their employees to take the challenge to clean up their workspaces in the office and at home. Bridget, would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you. I will get my screen shared. This one. Present mode. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today. My name is Bridget. As Dan said, I am an analyst on the sustainability team at Whirlpool. I'll explain our programs in a little bit, but I work on our climate program, our plant efficiency program, and also our reporting and data strategy. So I'm kind of all over the place on the sustainability team. And then also I'll let Kelly introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Tucker. I lead global communications for the sustainability team. So I'm really excited to be here to discuss more on our PR campaign, both internal and external, called No Place for Waste.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm going to start out with just a very brief explanation of kind of Whirlpool's sustainability and EHS as a whole for the company, just to give you some background on kind of where we are and how we're set up. So first, I wanted to talk a little bit about environmental health and safety and sustainability. We all kind of work together as one function under this We Care model, which is our kind of ideal for how we want to function and our cultural kind of status. So We Care incorporates shared responsibility, which is incorporating EHS culture into all of the employee areas. Protecting our employees, the obvious kind of safety aspects of EHS, preserving the environment, which is somewhat sustainability and somewhat the environmental side, and then acting sustainably, which is ensuring the future of the company through environmental health, safety, and sustainability. And all of these together form a kind of overall culture for EHS&S, but also the policy, a standards manual, a lot of process documents, and other trainings and resources for EHS&S and also for the entire company related to these areas. When we talk about Whirlpool Global Sustainability, we tend to think about it in three big buckets, which are plants, products, and practices. So for plants, we're thinking about the operations that we have and how to make sure that we are able to deliver our products in the most efficient way possible. For products, thinking about high performance goods and services that are helping our consumers improve their lives at home, but also how can we do that with the least amount of resources taken from the earth that still make great products. And then practices is really all about how we embed sustainability into the culture of the company and create systems and practices for the entire company to make sure that sustainability is incorporated in every facet. And then under these kind of three pillars, we have our programs. So sustainability is split into these 5 different program areas. We have design for environment, that is talking all about how we make our products better, from the materials that go in them to the efficiency of them. We also have circular economy, which is another program focused on products. Circular economy is thinking about how we take our business model from make, use, waste to a more reuse model and being responsible for the end of life of our products as well. We have the Net Zero Homes program, which is really focused on innovation. This program, you might have heard of the Renew House, and maybe we'll have a deeper session on the Renew House in the future, but this program focuses on how we make all of the home sustainable, so even going outside of our products, and how we kind of connect the products within the home so that they are working together in a sustainable way. And this is also just kind of our incubator for new ideas related to sustainability and partnerships with other companies and universities. Zero impact operations is one of the ones that I'm most strongly a part of. So this is kind of, as you can probably tell by the name, focused on making sure that our operations have no impact on the earth. So things like our zero waste to landfill target, our emissions targets, and our energy targets kind of fall under this program. And it's really about supporting the plants to make sure that they understand all the actions that they can take to be more sustainable. And then last, but certainly not least, we have our climate risk program, which looks at different potential risks that could come with climate change, such as natural disasters or other risks to our operations. But it also looks at all of our emissions calculations. And this is also the program that's currently responsible for our reporting, to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in terms of making sure that our external image is correct in terms of what we're doing. Why is sustainability important? I'm sure all of you know this because you decided to join this webinar today, but just wanted to put it out there from the Whirlpool perspective. We have all of our external, and internal stakeholders expecting us to be doing these things. And that influences, our investors, our ratings and things, and also how our employees view our company. We want to keep pace with our competitors and peer companies and make sure that we have aggressive goals. We want to make sure that we strengthen our reputation, similar to the above one. This is kind of what we're expected to do, and making sure that we're doing all of the right things in the right way. And then continuing to invest in plant efficiency and making sure that our plants are running in the most efficient way possible. Some of our commitments I wanted to share. So this year we just released our net zero target, which is to be net zero in our operations for emissions by 2030. And this relates to our manufacturing sites as well as our larger warehouses, focusing for now on those areas where we can have the biggest influence. We have our zero waste to landfill by 2022 commitment, which is for all the sites to reach a gold level under the UL standard. I will not go that deep into it, but basically we're trying to get all of our sites to as close to zero waste to landfill as possible. And we have 25% product emissions reduction. So for the actual emissions coming from our products in use in consumers' homes, we want to reduce those emissions by 25% by 2030. And then full material transparency capable. So this is related to the materials and chemicals in our products and making sure that we are understanding every single material that is in every part in every product. And we have a system to be able to track and collect all of that information. And so our target is to make sure that that system is rolled out across all regions and all suppliers. And then the last one is to make sure that we have top ratings and tools. So this relates to all of those ratings and rankings that I mentioned earlier. We want to make sure that we are displaying ourselves the best way possible there, and also then developing tools for internal stakeholders so that everybody in the company can embed sustainability into their work. And then the last thing I think that I'm going to talk about is our progress so far. So I'm not going to go through all of these items, but I just wanted to show some highlights from the sustainability report. One of the ones I mentioned on the last slide was net zero emissions in our operations. So if you see the scope 1 and 2 location based in the middle there, that is our operation emissions so far. And you can see from 2016 to 2020, we've already reduced our scope 1 and 2 emissions quite a bit. So we want to continue on that trend going forward. And then also on this side, the scope 3, which is the products in use emissions. Again, you can see we've already made a huge progress in this category of emissions, but we want to continue to improve on that, getting to that 25% by 2030. We also have 25 of our sites already at zero waste to landfill. And for this one, I think it's really interesting because in 2020 with COVID, everybody kind of expected this to be a very difficult one to continue the pace on because of PPE needing to be disposed in the correct way for health and safety in the sites. But our employees at the sites really stepped up and made it a priority, even though it might not have seemed like one based on everything else that was going on. And so we did get 25 of our sites reaching that level. And I think in general with 2020, we had the EHS team and the sustainability team really having a light shown on us because with EHS doing so much work to protect all of our employees with coronavirus and embedding that we care philosophy in the company, it really showed everybody how important our work is. And then with things like the zero waste to landfill target, being able to kind of deliver on the progress there, even in a very difficult year, proved to the entire company that we can have that trust and have that light on us, which I think was something that really allowed us to set those more aggressive targets like the net zero target, because we built up that trust in our function. And also, I think that just goes to the point of we had such a challenge in 2020, and we wanted to make sure that we were supporting our employees in the best way possible. And Kelly now will talk about how that worked in supporting people as they were working from home.
Thanks, Bridget. So I'm really excited to talk to you all about our Green Workspace certification. And this was a way that our company wanted to really get our employees engaged. As many of you probably are, our employees across the globe are still working remotely. We're slowly but surely bringing some folks back in, but we really struggled with not only launching the 2019 report, but the 2020 report in the midst of COVID. And we really wanted to make sure that we reached our employees where they were, but also gave them an opportunity to create some effective change themselves. So if you can go to the next slide, Bridget, I can introduce our challenge. So we started off with our challenge, if you guys can remember back into the late Q3, Q4, we started actually planning our sustainability report during the entire year. So we are actively keeping our minds and our eyes and our ears open for story ideas and thinking through kind of how the story of the year is shaping up. In 2020, we really knew that this was going to be our most challenging launch. We launched the 2019 report, I believe, the week after the lockdowns hit the state of Michigan. So that was a challenge in and of itself. But if you think about just drafting a document that's 90 pages long, I think it ended up being, Bridget. If you think about drafting a document that long, all of the assets that we typically put into the report had to be very different. If you think about all the images that we used, making sure that we were accurately portraying what the current circumstances were. So we were doing a lot of, thinking through what this report was going to look like and how our PR efforts were going to fit within it, keeping in mind that all of our employees were remote with no end in sight of when they were coming back. And then also too, how do we keep them engaged in sustainability, keep it into the forefront of what they're doing? Everyone's focus was really just surviving on the day-to-day, and how do you break through to your employees, but also give them an opportunity to learn about what we're doing, but also apply it in their own lives. And then towards the end of the year, we started looking at our data. Bridget has been, one of the most key people on the team to help us understand this data. And we really started to think, we expected that energy and water intensity would go down. That was something I think across the board, everybody was going to deal with. For us, our operations were considered essential in all of our manufacturing environments. So we did not stop production. We still kept the same amount and the same level, if not more, with social distancing. So we imagined that we were going to have a trade-off on that. And we really expected our waste for a zero waste to landfill to go up. What was really impressive was the fact that it didn't go up. It was so ingrained in how our employees actually do their work and the commitment that they have to their jobs that it actually went down. And we were really shocked, but pleasantly surprised, especially when you think about all of the PPE, the additional PPE that people were wearing to go to their jobs on a daily basis. So what we really started to think about after we saw that was that our employees are making a huge difference. Even though they were in the midst of probably the most chaotic period of their lives, they were still committed to sustainability. And that was a really important thing for us to remind ourselves that, if they have this commitment in, their work environments, how can we expand this success to our employees who are working remotely? If you think about, the majority of our professional kind of white collar per se employees are working from home, are they having an impact? We've optimized our operations in our buildings, but how are their homes, and how can we help them optimize their homes? Because they're using a lot more resources. As I know many of you have experienced, your power bill probably went up. Bridget, can you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
So we came up with this idea of how can we help them change their environment? How can we give them a collective ability to reduce the waste, not only just in materials, but in energy, but also keeping a safe and healthy environment? And that's where the idea of the Green Workspace came in, under the umbrella of our No Place for Waste, so that there really is no place that waste is, that we can have waste. And we thought of waste in a few different ways: waste of time, waste of energy, waste of resources. And what really, I think, spurred my mind is the study that I read early on into the middle of the pandemic, where there was a study that suggested that overall energy savings were expected to maybe go down, but in some cases, it actually offset it. Because if you think about it, instead of our employees using our cafeteria, which is maybe using one oven for 2,000 people, you now have 2,000 people at home turning on different lights that may not be LED lights, that also will be heating up ovens for just one meal, instead of using a collective resource. So that was really kind of an eye-opener for me of how we can really make an impact. So we launched this on April 22nd, which was shortly after we launched our 2020 sustainability report, and today is the last day of it. So I'm really excited to get more into the details. So Bridget, next slide, please.
It's not going, hold on.
It's all right. I can start talking through it. So really, there was 3 objectives for us on how we did this. And it was really just to encourage our employees to be engaged. It was very, very hard for us to keep our employees feeling collectively engaged, being remote, when they're on Zoom meetings all day. But also too, how can we educate our employees so that when they do come back to our office buildings, that they're still having these really wonderful sustainable actions. And then finally, increasing the knowledge of what we're doing here. A lot of the work that we do is something that may not be as obvious to the everyday employee. So how do we get that visibility so that they understand exactly what we're doing? So the next slide will show you that we took into account LEED certification. We are building a new building in Argentina right now, and we were thinking a lot about how it's built, how this environment is going to be for our employees in Argentina. And it made me think about, I'm sitting here working on this communications plan. I'm in a plastic chair, folding desk, in an office that has no light. And the environment that I was working in was horrible. I was not prepared by any means to work for 18 months from home. So we wanted to really take into account not just how much energy that we were using, but also the environment that you were working in. Is it safe? Is it healthy? Is it clean? Is it a nice, efficient working environment? And then the materials that you're using. Are you being mindful that you may actually be using more materials than you were before? So we took a lot of, I would say, inspiration from LEED certification by really bringing in that health and safety and the materials aspect. But you'll see along the points, we wanted to kind of prioritize the areas that we felt were really impactful, that people could make a difference. So the next slide will talk about a little bit of the process through it. We knew right away that we had to make this very simple. It's a global campaign. So for all of our regions across the world, we needed something that was super simple for people to do. People were overwhelmed, overworked, and we didn't want this to be just another thing that they needed to do. We wanted it to be fun. So we just made some very quick instructions. We asked people to just do at least 2 actions. Start small. It doesn't have to be, reinventing the wheel or rebuilding a new house. but just how can we take some simple actions to make a difference? And then once people had completed the actions, we asked them to fill out a very simple Google survey with the certification form. That came to me in a spreadsheet format. I had the spreadsheet so that it would calculate where their points totaled up. And then once I got their points, I sent out a certification. So making sure that we were recognizing our employees for what they were doing, not just rewarding, but recognizing that they made these efforts. So we gave them some certificates, digital, obviously. We made some really cool digital frames for them to put over their LinkedIn profiles. And then we also gave them badges to put on their email signatures so people could see where they lined up, whether it be gold or green, gold, or platinum certification. Bridget, go to the next one, please. So here's an example of one of the areas, energy, the energy pillar, which was the first of the just very simple types of things that we asked people to do. Optimize your computer settings, change your light bulbs, adjust your heating and cooling. This one I wanted to point out the most was because we had to really be very mindful of the fact that we're a global company and that the people that would be completing this are living in very different environments. If you think about our colleagues in India, they may not have access to be able to put in a programmable thermostat. And we didn't want them to feel like they were being, that they were not going to get the amount of points and the recognition for not being able to do that. Some of our employees live in urban areas that they don't have the ability to be able to do some of the changes. So we tried to make them very global in nature, very easy to do. And you'll see that some of the savings are pretty significant if you think about just very simple, turn your computer off at the end of the day, power it off, plug it into a smart strip so it doesn't drain phantom power from your electricity. And then just adjusting your monitor brightness and your lighting in your environment. Next one, please. So these were the levels. We started off, we wanted to at least give people an opportunity to try it. So 5 to 10 points was our green certification. And to be quite honest, we only had one person and that person showed up last week. So for the entire, 3 months that we did this, we only had one green certification. It was really shocking. Most people hit within the platinum and the gold area, which I think was a really good way to tell not only our commitment, our employees' commitment to sustainability, but also too just how easy these tips were. Next slide, please. So also too, within the deck that we gave with instructions, we also gave additional information. So giving people the background on, just the change that they're making, of the difference, the cost savings with moving from incandescent bulbs to LEDs, or just some facts on phantom energy and sources of phantom energy throughout your house, or how to program your thermostat. What are the suggested levels to be at? So for each one of these categories and each one of the tips that we gave, we did give some additional information. We also had one where people could replace and add a green plant into their office. And we gave them a list of the top 20 best green plants to put in their office. So helping them be successful was giving them some additional information. Next slide, please. So the results. So here's, we asked all of our employees who took part to kind of take some selfies. You'll see all the green plants. That was a huge, I would say almost everybody did the green plants. I don't think that there was maybe more than 5 who didn't. But people were really proud of their workspaces. They were really proud to take part in this and to show off that they had a commitment to sustainability. So we got a lot of great pictures, and in turn, we're going to use these for our sustainability report in 2021, which helps us also too with the fact that we weren't able to be in person for this year or last year. So the amount of really good quality images we had for our sustainability report was near zero. So this really helps us to be able to show our employees actually living our values through following this certification. So next one, please. So we had about 182 participants globally. So 4 out of 5 regions participated. The only area that we didn't have participation was in Asia and China, but we had it in every other region. And we saved over 61,000 kilowatt hours of total energy. And that's just from the energy pillar itself, not even taking into account the LED light bulbs, because that was something that we couldn't measure. But we did have 4 areas that were really easy for us to measure, which was optimizing your computer, turning it off, changing to a smart strip. And that allowed us to be able to calculate some actual quantitative data of savings. And when you factor that in, and if you go to the next slide, it really makes it quantifies just how big of an impact our employees made. The greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to 61,000 kilowatts is enough to power 8 homes a year, 8 full American homes, or 9.5 passenger cars driving a normal amount for an entire year, and over 5 million smartphones that could be charged. So this is a great way also to show the impact back to your leadership. If you have an opportunity to do something like this, leaders tend to only understand numbers. And this is a great way to quantify just the total impact, more than just the fact that it was 182 employees. It really did make a huge, huge impact on our collective sustainability efforts. And then next up. So key takeaways. This is where I'm getting to the end, and I'm really excited to answer any questions you have, but I really wanted to share with you, if you have a plan to do something similar to this, some of the learnings that we had, change champions. So having somebody, some champions within your organization to help you get buy-in. We're really lucky to have a group called ECHO. They're an employee resource group who is focused on sustainability efforts. As Bridget discussed earlier, a lot of our focus is on the operations side, and some of our office buildings may not get, they're not part of the strategy, would say per se. So these change champions from ECHO really help us kind of push the sustainability message to our employees. And it gets a whole bunch of people who are like-minded, that have the same commitment to sustainability to really help push our message. So we partnered with ECHO on this. They were very, very helpful in getting our message out to their groups and helping us to really just highlight the messages that we had. So it was phenomenal. If you have an opportunity to get a change champion network, I would highly suggest it, even if it's leadership. It's very, very helpful. I would say the second probably biggest thing is just make the changes easy. When I looked at just the data, doing the data analysis of what our employees actually implemented in their house and what they didn't, the easiest things like changing a light bulb, turning off your computer, almost everybody did it. When we looked at the things that were maybe not quite as implemented, things like buying a smart thermostat, it's a little bit more challenging. So if you can make things easy, take the complexity out of it, that's a big, big deal. And then I would say recognition. There's a big difference between recognition and reward. Reward is giving something of monetary value, and recognition is really acknowledging the action. And that was our objective here, is to really acknowledge and reward that action that people took. So at the end of the week, we would put a post up on Whirlpool 360, which is our kind of internal social media network. And we would highlight every single person that got certified that week. And the engagement on those posts was huge. It was amazing how far just a little bit of recognition went. It also, I think, helped spur some teams for a little bit of healthy competition that gamified it so that people would take part into it and people were actually getting their teams involved. And then I think, the other two important parts are just to tie it back to your operational wins. You always want to tie it back to your strategy, and being able to connect the wins that we've had in our operations with how we've had our employees make these same changes at home, I think really makes them feel like they have an opportunity to make change when they're in the office, not just in their home, but then to also understand too the impacts that we've made in our own office buildings, in our own operations. So always having that tie back to the strategy, I would say is very key. And then last but not least, don't underestimate how important this is, not only to your employees, but also your consumers. I think the thing that I learned that I was so surprised about was we had one final question that was an open-ended question on the certification. And we asked people to tell us what they do on their own that may not be on our list. And we heard a ton from people. People are really interested in composting, solar panels, and there were a few people that moved their offices in their homes so that they didn't have to use artificial lighting. And it was just amazing to see how important it was. So don't underestimate it. And if you think that it's only going to be a few people, it's definitely not. I was very pleasantly surprised at how important it was to our stakeholders. So I think that's it. I have one more slide, and it's just to kind of show you what our employees told us about what they're doing in their own homes. Things like rain barrels, but it's just really amazing to see the commitment that our employees have. And I'm sure that all of you have employees very, very similarly that have just the same level of commitment to sustainability. So that is all I have.
I think you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Kelly and Bridget. Sorry about that. Still not immune to it, I guess, after all this time. If anyone has questions, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A session or in the chat or in the chat. I've got a few questions to start us off, if that's okay. The first one is, can you tell us a little more about the tool that you used? Was that an off-the-shelf product, or did you develop it? Did it take much work to develop that?
The tool used for the certification?
Yes.
It was very simple. I used Google
Okay.
surveys. It took me about 5 minutes. It was the easiest thing to do. I would say the thing that probably took the longest was creating the spreadsheet. So going in and making sure that when people would send in their certification through the sheet, it would send me a spreadsheet, and then going in and just putting all the formulas in. So it just auto-populated. So when people would add what they did, it would auto-populate and it would color code to tell me exactly what level they hit. And I would just go do a double check, grab their email, and then just send out the kit for them.
Did you find that there was any trends of participation between various sites?
No, I didn't see any trends, surprisingly, between regions. I would say that it was what I think probably the biggest difference was just the heating and cooling aspect of it. Seeing the difference in what's available in each country. In Brazil, they don't have heat, obviously. A lot of them don't have air conditioning either. And then obviously in the US, probably a bigger opportunity for smart thermostats. The other thing I thought was pretty surprising was that in Europe, they were not aware of what a smart strip was. So not knowing, what those smart strips were, if they were available, I think was a surprising factor for me.
Was that a product that didn't exist, or they just use it by a different name?
I don't know if it exists in Europe. Bridget, do you know off the top of your head?
I'm not sure.
I don't think it does, to tell you the truth.
You reference a group, the Echo group. How would we understand that? Is that like a green team? Is that like a champions network?
I can talk about it a little bit. So ECHO, it stands for Eco-Conscious in the Home and Office. It's just an employee group. I guess you could probably call it like a green team. I think that's what other companies that have similar things call it. but it's really just a group of people who are passionate about sustainability who kind of got together and formed a group to take on some projects. As Kelly mentioned, our sustainability kind of strategy right now for the global sustainability team is more focused on our manufacturing and warehouse operations than our offices. So one of the focuses for the ECHO group is seeing what actions we can take in our offices, especially in the St. Joe Benton Harbor area where we have a large number of offices. But then we also do some community support activities, like volunteering for cleanups and things like that, and a lot of education for employees on different environmental topics. I think the biggest thing we've seen, the group has been around for about 2 years, and the biggest thing we've seen is that people just don't know where to start or have a lot of questions about different topics, like what can be recycled and how, and how do I start a compost, and how can I save waste on my Christmas presents, all kinds of just questions. And ECHO is kind of a place for them all to go with those questions. I hope that helps.
Great, that's wonderful. Do you expect, or are you planning for a post-COVID phase for the certification as people begin returning to the office, or at least in a limited time?
We've talked a lot about taking it up, doing an additional challenge. So challenging the employees that have already gone through the certification to kind of take additional challenges. So keeping them engaged, giving them some fun opportunities to really use the tips and tricks that we gave them, and maybe even up the game a little bit. We currently don't have a fully set in stone return to the office date. It looks like it's going to be sometime in the fall for us, but we have discussed keeping this group engaged because we did see how important it was to them. So I think that this is a really valuable group, especially as a comms professional supporting this team. This is a group I think that will be very helpful in the future to keep contact with and keep them active, to help them really spread our messages and to help us get action implemented across our operations.
And I've got one last question for you today. Can you share how the use of campaigns that highlight opportunities for people's individual and personal sustainability improvements help to reinforce the on-the-job corporate goals and trainings that you're trying to encourage?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we started to see, one of the trends, and I'm sure that anybody else can probably attest to this, is that our employees were just feeling really burned out in terms of meetings and having to do their work, and then just the overall weight of everything. And we wanted to do something fun and engaging to get them to understand and to really learn about our messaging. And we knew that we had to approach it from a really different angle during COVID, that we needed to reach them where they were, not only physically, but just mentally where they were. Our traditional tactics of communication were not working. To be quite honest, they just weren't. Nobody was paying attention to email. They were super overwhelmed. Nobody wanted to go. Last year we did a really fun live stream with Ron Vogelweed, who is our global head of sustainability, where people could come on and ask questions. And we just knew that it wasn't going to work this year. People were just burned out. So using these kind of employee campaigns to give them a different angle, to give them a different way to connect and engage, was something that we felt would help us penetrate our audience and get our messaging out there in just a really challenging time.
Kelly, Bridget, that's all the question. That's all the questions I have for you today. And I, unless I'm missing one, I don't think I think we've covered everything that's come up in the chat here. Rose, do you have any? Do you have any questions, or Richard, Kelly, anything further you'd like to add today?
I don't. Thank you both very much. It was very valuable information, and I'm really excited to share it and distribute it with other members. And I'm sure that everybody on the call really enjoyed listening to it as well. Learned a lot from it.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
congratulations on such a great successful campaign. Look forward to seeing where it goes from here. Again, thank you both for your both for your presentation invites, and for everyone attending today. If you found our talk valuable, please consider becoming an MGSSBF member or checking out our website for upcoming webinars and other opportunities at mgssbf.org. And please do keep an eye out for our our feedback survey coming out presently here. And again, Bridget, Kelly, thank you so much. That's our program today. Bridget, the next time I see you, we will make sure to give you a speaker gift. Kelly as well. Usually it's beer, but it doesn't mail very well.
Sure, fair.
So at some point in your future, you'll have a growler from delivery coming your way.
Perfect.
I'll have to wait on mine, but thanks. I've got about 4 more weeks. 5 more weeks.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure. I learned a lot today.
Have a great rest of your day and a wonderful holiday weekend.